What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market and the potential for whether or not the bottom is actually already in. For the last month and a half, I've discussed my idea and what I would think would happen with Bitcoin in regards to a short squeeze happening to the upside, following by a pullback, a retracement, and then a further move down. Essentially, a blow off top, followed by an A, B, C correction. This tweet was posted over here on Twitter on April 10th, referencing to this video that was posted over here on April 5th on my YouTube channel, discussing the idea ABC, retracement back to 702, and then we head on down. This, of course, had confluence with what we were talking about with XRP. As you can see, XRP was still above 50 cents here. We're talking about the same thing. Prices pulling back down lower. And well, ever since then, on April 5th, for the last month and a half, we've been staring at this thing, watching it play out. We had precisely those things occur: short squeeze, pullback, retracement to the 702 Fibonacci retracement level, and then we've gone on and set a new low. So by all technical definitions, we have actually gone ahead and done an ABC correction in here. But the question is that enough? We got very close to the green box. Ever since the retracement took place, we've actually fallen over $4,000. There's been just merely about $500 remaining to at least be able to touch the box, which means that in this whole move down, we've gone about 90% of the way to get to that box, and that there was just a little bit further to go. And will we turn over and go down and hit it, or have we already found our lows currently right now? So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've been looking at here in the last day or two that definitely has me scratching my head on my thoughts, and why I would have expected that if we're going to go down and hit it, that we probably would have done it by now. I'll show you the things that I have that are concerns, but I'll show you the reasons why my head's scratching a little bit to say I'm curious if we're actually going to get down there at this point. We got very close. We went 90% of the way, but just $500 short. Will we go any further? Now, the very first thing I want to point to before we all start hooting and hollering that the bottom is in is that at the current price right now, I do have concerns about Bitcoin. Anybody new to looking at charts and trying to do it themselves, the very first thing anybody ever learns is like the head and shoulders. Of course, everybody learns how to make a trend line, but once they've learned how to make trend lines, they start learning how to make a head and shoulders pattern. And essentially what we would have here is a left shoulder followed by a head, followed by a right shoulder. In a head and shoulders pattern, or an inverse head and shoulders pattern, you measure the distance of the move by measuring the length of the head to the neckline, then the break through the neckline. And one of the most common things to happen in a head and shoulders pattern is that you go back to test the neckline prior to the completion of the move taking place. Currently, right now, we've broken through the neckline. We sit on the bottom side of it. We haven't broken back above it. For all we know, this is just a back test of a neckline before a price tumble starts to take place. That move would get us down into our region. That's my major conflict with what's going on right now, is merely that. One, a head and shoulders breakdown with a neckline back test. And two, we haven't quite gotten down to the original zone that I thought we'd go find some support at. We got within $500 after falling $4,300. We went 90% of the way, came up a little bit short. So this, along with the neckline backtest, does have me cautious about Bitcoin, because typically the final move of any leg down is going to be a capitulatory move. It's going to be fearful. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. And I sure would look like a dummy to, at this particular location, say with 100% conviction, this isn't just a backtest of a breakdown. So the point of what I'm saying here is, if we see some type of big break come out of here, to say, this is no longer in play. But then we have to come to the question of whether or not is this no longer in play. And we got within 500, and that was good enough. So I'm going to show you a few different things that have me scratching my head that there's the potential that we did actually already see it happen. Again, things I'm looking for confirmation to say that the bottom already is in is something like that. A big break through the neckline, getting us back to the upside, saying we don't have to worry about this. And personally, I would rather not, because if you know me, not a huge fan of trend lines. I don't like putting my marbles on the idea of trend lines because they will fail more often than not. But no doubt, it's there. We see it on the screen. Classic head and shoulders with a 702 retracement, still being mindful of capitulation happening in here. Looking for a confirmation move to say this neckline is irrelevant by getting a solid break above to say 29,000. But there's mainly three other reasons why I've been scratching my head to think, did we get close enough? We dropped 4,300. We're within 500 from the box. It's almost 90% of the way. Was that good enough? I'm going to show you the three different reasons that have me thinking there's the potential that it was. As we've been talking about since April 5th, when this original video was put out, understanding the structures of what an ABC would look like after you had a short squeeze through the top side, and then in a capitulation move to pull you straight back down, quickly back down to the lows after going into a 702 retracement. While price behavior has been like that up until this point, we can clearly see things have slowed down. We broke through the support aggressively and then suddenly are maintaining much higher. Typically, as we get through, this should just continue as we start making a bottoming process happening in here. We go straight into capitulation and then that's it. That's also how we reacted back at the peak of the market as well, back in February, March, and April of 2021. We plow through, then after we get that initial breakdown, we just start support building throughout the rest of the summer before working our way back up. But as we can clearly see, the breakdown is the breakdown. The capitulation happens immediately upon breaking through supports. From a timing perspective, this thing has played very well. Behavior very well, retracements well, short squeeze well, breakdown well, and then suddenly when we get here, we've lost that kind of capitulation momentum. Things have drastically slowed down suddenly in here, as if a support is already being built in here for Bitcoin currently right now. Typically, that breakthrough of support down in here leads straight on into capitulation, but we did find some support already start to come in here for Bitcoin. So I do find it interesting. We've gone through the moment in which we should have capitulated further. We got very close in that capitulation, but the momentum seems to have run out in here. So that is the first thing on my radar to say, you know, when we break through this thing, we should have really just kind of capitulated and we've really paused out here. That's the first thing on my radar to get me scratching my head to say, maybe we have already bottomed. The second thing is just the fact that we were looking for an ABC correction to emerge in here for Bitcoin. While the box is $500 lower to the downside, in the end, it is still an ABC correction that has emerged in here. And just to make it a little bit cleaner and easier to see, you have A, B, C, which is a corrective wave. Now, is there any rule that would allow this C wave to be this short and to not go the additional $500 more to the downside? Well, we can look up rules on different Elliott waves. There are tons of them out there, but let's look at simple zigzag ABC correction, the simplest form of an ABC. Here are the main Elliott wave rules for ABC corrections. The ABC correction pattern subdivides into a 5-3-5 internal wave pattern. In other words, what we're doing is we are now breaking these waves down even more to say, are there 5 waves that take place in here for wave A? Are there 5 waves that take place in here? Wave C? I'd say maybe, but you'd have to start kind of getting lenient with this stuff that happened in here, as this high is slightly higher than this one, this high is slightly higher than this one. Then you start getting into the complications of, well, is this like wave 1 and this is wave 2 and now we're working on 3 and this is 4 and then comes the 5. I'm not going to confuse you too much with that stuff, but do we see 5 waves to the downside? Do we see like a 5 wave ending that happens in here? Yes, we do. And then this is the one we're going to actually focusing on here. Waves A and C tend towards equality in length. What does that mean? Wave A and wave C tend towards equality in length. Otherwise saying that wave A is of equivalent length of wave C, that they fall the same amount in here. So that's very simple to figure out. Let's find out. We have our A, our B, and our C. How long is wave A? Wave A is approximately $4,063. We'll shift this over here to the peak of wave B, starting right here, to see very close to the same length. To visually see that in another way, we can just grab it, place it on top to see that these lengths are very, very near equivalent. Satisfying waves A and C tend towards equality in length. So from an Elliott wave perspective, have we completed or at least satisfied A, B, C, and have we satisfied any of the rules? Let's say it's potential that we have, as we now have waves of near equal length that have occurred in here for Bitcoin for both waves A and C, satisfying zigzag Elliott wave. So that's two things kind of leaning in Bitcoin's favor for a bottom currently being in is one, we did get ABC correction. And by technical definition, we have satisfied enough to say an ABC correction has already occurred. We have waves of near equal length that have occurred in here and occurring off of a standard Fibonacci retracement level. That's a positive sign for a completed ABC correction. Secondly, another positive thing going for Bitcoin is that once we typically break through support levels, typically the capitulation's in full effect. We have found some supports that have showed up in here for Bitcoin at this point. Historically, in these structures that we anticipated prior to the short squeeze even occurring over here on Bitcoin, that by the time we get a breakdown, we're typically going to see some type of capitulation actually end up happening. And at this point, while we have played along, things did find some support in here. Another positive sign for Bitcoin. So one of the things I really like to do is if I'm trying to find the answer to Bitcoin or answer to altcoins, a lot of times at the altcoin market, if I'm trying to find the bottom over there, I'll go look at Bitcoin and I'll say, can I find confluence with Bitcoin signaling that a bottom could be in for the altcoin market or a top could be in for the altcoin market? And then I'll do the same thing vice versa. If I'm looking for a bottom over there in Bitcoin, I'll look over here to the altcoin market to say, are there any things going on over here that could suggest that the bottom is in for the altcoin market? And well, if you've been following the XRP videos that I've been putting out, we've been spending a tremendous amount of time talking about this. And that clearly we've been following along with what we've done before in reaccumulation phases after falling the exact same length as we did in the past, which was an 88.5% fall in the reaccumulation phase back in 2015, 16, and 17. This is 88.5% here for XRP with incredibly similar accumulation schematics happening in here down at these lows as well. And so we've been watching this price action happening over here to say, okay, are we following along with what's going on? Once again, I've been running another thread over there on Twitter starting on March 21st when this original breakout started, expressing my thoughts that I thought we would still pull back afterwards. And I've continued to update this thread as well as prices have been moving along. The most recent update I made to it was 1 week ago from today, in which I stated that XRP continues Wyckoff Spring, entering interesting prices. As mentioned on YouTube, there are several supports down here. I absolutely could see a 31 cent XRP, which is negative 25% from here. With that, I've started nibbling and added today. I'm aggressive in the 30 cents if offered. And we've made YouTube videos on this, discussing this, that there are valid reasons to think there could be a support and a bottom emerging here for XRP as well. While spring phase takes us down here into the lower 30s, we found some support there on top of the 100-day moving average after this corrective breakout, which, as many who were here back in 2020 will remember, the 22.5-cent time period in which we did something similar with a big breakout, a long pullback, getting back to this 200-day moving average before then ramping up again. And while our spring phase tells us we go into the 30s, we did recognize we're on top of that 200-day moving average. We have found support on this before in a similar situation just like this. In addition, the phase of which this happened back in 2020 was during the capitulation of the bottom after the C19 sell-off happened for XRP, then finally working its way back up, finding support on the 200 to continue. This phase back in here, what is this? This is the capitulation phase of the market as well, where FTX collapses. So for recognizing those confluences, I did start to nibble at adding XRP to my bags with the potential of a bottom being there. Still, to this point, we know very well if we're going into spring phase, there's further price depreciation to happen in here. It's not unusual to see moves like this happen here in these price levels, but we have seen supports happen like this on top of the 200-day moving average back at a supportive level after a capitulative move in the market with a catalyst. Another thing has been various altcoins. I'm probably going to pull up a few different altcoins on the screen. I'm in no way recommending you go run out and buy them. We'll see how they end up playing out. But something I've been looking for has been ABC corrections to emerge over here on a lot of these, like the one we have on the screen, which is Hedera, Hashgraph, or HBAR. For the last several weeks, I've had my zone of interest here, and prices have been sitting at that level here for the past week. I've talked about this many times before on how bottoms can form in here, referencing XRP, referencing Bitcoin from back in 2018 and 19, and that the common thing when we pull off of these lows and we find our bottom and move our way back up to our resistance levels is that in addition, we will have an ABC that emerges in here going slightly lower than our previous low, even showing somewhat of an ABC in here and in here. This phenomenon is littered all over the charts amongst various assets and is also what we saw happen with Bitcoin back in 2019 as it was forming its bottom, albeit having to step down one more little time. One chart I was really looking for this to happen on was right here on the others chart, which is going to be all of the altcoins excluding the top 10 in the cryptocurrency market. So it's going to exclude, USDT, USDC, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, the top 10 assets in the cryptocurrency market. This is going to include everything else, the others chart. And unfortunately for us, TradingView actually had some type of error occur with it on this day, posting this big green candle right in here. Because here on Tuesday, May 16th, just 2 days ago, it printed a big plus 6.5% candle here on the altcoin market of everything excluding the top 10, which actually no is not true. Pretty sure all of us would be hooting and hollering that there would have been such a large move in the altcoin market just 2 days ago. Because if we even zoom in on this even closer, you could see this is just like one instant candle here showing up on this chart, while total 2, the entire altcoin market drifted to the downside. Even when we put us on the 1 minute chart, we just have one 1 minute candle that goes up over 6%. So unfortunately on this chart, we don't have the ability to sit here and say, did we get down there or not? Because of this little API error that happens to show up, or this input error, whatever it is, where 6.5% gets added to the market instantly. It's going to make this this chart difficult moving forward, unless if there's like an instant removal of 6.5% from the market suddenly. But otherwise, got very close to those levels we're talking about in here. And then even when the altcoin market moves down on this day, there's just some type of error that happens in here that causes it to just shoot up. But otherwise, very, very close, right? So we have these sprinkled throughout the market. These are what bottoms typically look like when we fire off of the lows after capitulation occurs, especially with an event like FTX happening to mark a low. Fire off of those lows, ABC pullback in here. We're back into those ranges of where bottoms can form in here. By technical definition, we have had an ABC play out here for Bitcoin and in a zigzag ABC, the waves of our equivalent length. So we have satisfied those requirements in an ABC corrective structure of a zigzag. In addition, if we're going to see aggressive price action to the downside, in these circumstances, we typically have already seen it now. The capitulation phase typically happens upon the break of the support happening in here. And we somehow did find some support. And we did get within $500 of actually hitting the box, with 90% of the move being reached. I would say all of those things are optimistic at this point. At least I'd say they had me scratching my head and not saying, haha, we have to do this now. Because there's now an argument for both sides. We've spent the last month and a half having this be our expectation, as I mentioned a week ago, be about looking for bottoms to start forming. And now you have actual arguments for both sides now. Now you have arguments to say a bottom is already forming, because typically in the break of the support, we capitulate immediately. We have found supports already. That's typically what we do when that support gets broken. It just goes straight on down into capitulation. By the time support gets found, we're working out a bottom. You can see it dipped slightly lower, but we were working out a bottom. But that breakthrough is typically your capitulation phase in full effect. And well, since that breakthrough, we have just stopped. So when you take into the fact that as the capitulation should have continued, we did get aggressive price action on a breakthrough, we have stopped, we have settled down. When we look at ABC zigzag corrections, waves A and C tend towards equality in length. That condition is also satisfied over here on Bitcoin. And we do have potential supports over here in various aspects of the altcoin market. Whereas if you would have asked me 1 month ago, do we have anything signaling a bottom? I would have clearly told you no. As a month has progressed, we have several things now moving towards we could be having a bottom forming here in the market. When we look at the confluences between various altcoins, market caps, and Bitcoin, price behavior, ABC corrections, capitulations, waves of equal length, there's more check marks moving into that bottom discussion, but we definitely can't say, or at least I definitely can't say, every check mark is there. A month ago, I would have said there's 0 check marks. That's why we've been repeating the same thing over and over for the past month. But in the last week, some of the check marks have started moving towards the other side. It is not so lopsided to say we have to go down. Elements are starting to appear favorable in the market that a bottom is forming, but we still don't have all the elements over there in that side or in that camp. And my arguments would be still that in a Wyckoff spring for XRP like this, even these types of moves that we're seeing happening in here right now for XRP, it's still just kind of typical. You could be having a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rolling back up to wave 4 to then go kerplunk with another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is really exactly what this is if we look closely at it, is that we can see this happening in here. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rolling back up to wave 4, and then it finalizes with another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the end, making the whole thing in A, B, C. And as we're saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to wave 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's exactly what we have happening here in a zigzag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the current price level XRP is at right now is not saying definitively bottom is in, we're on our way, let's rock and roll. This is actually exactly what it does still in these phases in here before capitulating into those lower 30s. Just because Bitcoin has waves of equal length in here doesn't necessarily mean it has to be how deep an ABC correction can go. The C leg many times can go much deeper than the A leg actually does. This is merely one form of an ABC correction. In many circumstances, the C leg is much longer than this A wave is, as it was at the top for Bitcoin, and as it was back in 2017's corrections. And that when the head and shoulders neckline breaks, we can go back to it before capitulation ends up occurring. However, the thing to take notice of here in regards to the capitulation occurring is the capitulation happens just below that base of wave A. And that all of this is occurring at higher levels. While our eyes visually see this, we do clearly see we're already below wave A. What are my thoughts? A month ago, you had nothing signaling bottom. You had the classic ABC structure setting up in here. It's why we've continued to talk about this for so long, at least with XRP and over here for Bitcoin. So while there was nothing 1 month ago, some arguments can be made for bottom forming right now. We do have an ABC on Bitcoin. We do have waves of equal length. We have broken through the support. In each of those different circumstances, when we broke through the support, we plowed through it, and then we found our bottom. We have lost that momentum of that breakdown already by hovering here for a week almost. XRP has found support on top of the 200-day moving average at a supportive zone after a capitulation catalyst in the market with FTX, which is what we saw happen back in here in 2020 after XRP broke out, found support on the 200-day moving average at a supportive zone after the capitulation catalyst of C19. Then at the same time, there's various altcoins who have reached C legs of accumulations of what happens to price action as it comes off of these lows that we've been experiencing really for all of 2023. So with all of that, you have an argument to at least say bottoms could be forming. It's not like a month ago where you had literally nothing. You do have like 4 different elements you can lean on and say, hey, these are conditions that typically happen at bottoms, but they are not clean because we don't have 100% of them over in that category. The elements that would be missing from what we said, well, this hasn't happened, normally it does, is a capitulation. Normally there's that final flush, there's that leverage wipeout that happens, and we haven't seen that. In addition, this could be a head and shoulders back test that's happening here for Bitcoin. Also, for XRP, this could merely be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And we're just completing the B wave to then head on into C, as we've seen. So what do all these things say? They say, well, either a bottom is in or a bottom is not. Like, great, blockchain backer. That doesn't help me in any way. Well, it actually does. Because what does it say? It says that if XRP can, say, break out to 52 cents, 51 cents, I mean, it's sitting at 46 right now. If it breaks out to like 52, well, we didn't get rejected on our Elliott wave like we should have if we were to be continuing down. So there's kind of like this invalidation level happening right in here. Well, really at about 49, I always like to be a little safer and say a little higher, like 51. So what is the play here? Well, for people who day trade, which I'm not giving trading advice, but to understand the thought process of how people handle something like this, if you have two scenarios, you have this one or you have a bottom is forming. So what will they do here? Will they buy it hoping that it's going to go up, or will they sell it? And the answer is they will sell it. They'll sell the market, set the stop at 51, targeting lower prices. If prices exceed here, the sell is invalidated. It's then time to flip bullish. As for Bitcoin, what's the play here? It's the exact same thing. We're at a resistance. We're not on top of a support. It's selling it, invalidating it with a clear break back above the neckline, and especially taking out a most recent high. If this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, as we know, we can simply just ABC ourselves right back to that wave 4 to then go on and do it all over again. So the invalidation of the sell gets placed above that level, targeting lower prices. And what it means, though, is while we sit here, we see all these different things that, hey, man, maybe these could be bottoms that are forming in here. We also definitely see issues happening, right? Back at a resistance level here, back at a resistance level, as we've typically done in this thing that we've just followed for the last month and a half. This is exactly what ends up happening here. It's clear as day. So traders are going to short here. They're going to have invalidation levels of getting above previous highs, previous local highs, to invalidate those wave counts. And the point being of this is to say, if we get above those levels, if you see Bitcoin crossing 28,500, 29,000, here are all the things that get invalidated on here, giving further support to zigzag waves of near equal length ABC completions. Otherwise, all the caution still has to be in place right here as we sit back at the resistance level. But we do have invalidation levels in here to start adding more check marks to bottom being in. For the last month, there's been 0 check marks in the bottom being in column. Here in the last week, we've added 3 or 4 in order to swing them massively into bottom is in check mark column. There needs to be some breaks of some resistances, which just at this time, there are none, right? You clearly see it. There haven't been any yet. Get some big breaks of this first resistance at least. Get above 28,500, get above $29,000. You officially have a break of resistance. You start invalidating this. You start breaking wave counts that would continue us lower. And the same story is true for XRP. Start shooting higher, start taking out 48.7, 49, right? Get higher, right? Get to that 51 cent level. You have a tremendous amount of wave count and validation that has happened in here, in addition with our support talking about being on top of that 200-day moving average and having it come after the capitulative moment of FTX, just like we had C19 in 2020. So you got a couple of things in your favor, but it's very, very clear there's more that has to be done in here. And that's the things we're looking for to say, which way are we headed? 0 resistances have been broken. But that's what happens when you're bottom hunting. That's the challenge of bottom hunting, is when you're trying to find the bottom, you're going to try to find it before any resistances get found or get broken to the upside. So right now, there are definitely check marks in the bottom category, unlike a couple of weeks ago where there were 0. But there's definitely still caution out there because not all the check marks are over there in that column. There's still concerns to be had. There's still no resistances broken. And this is still the exact same wave count for XRP from back in 2016 and 17. So we need to see the deviation happen in there for that to happen. And we'll keep our eyes on it closely. So I've definitely been spending more time staring at these charts than I typically have over the last month and a half. My bias has just been pull back, head down for the last month and a half. It is definitely more work and more challenging when you're trying to find the reversals. And that's what I've always done on this YouTube channel. For those who are new around here, it is constant reversal chasing and reversal hunting And you have to look at a lot of different things to try to catch a reversal. The general public typically waits, or the general retail investor crowd waits until things have turned around and it's ridiculously obvious that things have already turned around before they all kind of pile in together. I have always found, for me, it's better for me to actively hunt for all of those other signals to show a reversal coming in. So I'm not jumping in with the crowd at the exact same time. And those who have been here for a long time know that's really the meat and bones of what we do here. Like with Bitcoin back in last year, right in 2022, we were looking at all those different things. You had monthly RSI that was hitting, the 40. You had the weekly moving averages that were crossing each other. You had fractals that were aligning with each other. With Bitcoin and with the altcoin market, you had just a tremendous amount of things all signaling bottom is in. And it's hard to believe that here we are in May, that the bottom for the altcoin market came in June of last year. We're 11 months and the bottom has still been holding. So all those things were right. All those signals were right. It's a slow process, right? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it happens quickly, but this one clearly has been slow. But as we do, in June through January, how many times did you hear Bitcoin's going to 12K? How many times did you hear altcoin market's going to crash and crumble beyond there, when that market has still just held itself together for 11 months since that low was set in June? So reversal hunting is incredibly challenging, but you know what? That's what we'll keep doing. For my personal preferences, I wouldn't say there's like enough in that column for me to be like, yes, it's definitely there. That's why I'm kind of presenting both sides. But as you do know, for the last month, it's been nothing but down, 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 down. And not so much anymore. Now it's like, okay, well, if there's a chance of a bottom coming in, these are the things that are going on in here. Still having to be cautious that these original ideas are valid, but here's some supporting documentation to say, here's the reasons why bottoms could be forming. But in order for those to be validated or invalidated, here's a particular price level. So that's what I tried to provide you guys in this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.